My name's Eric. I'm making some stuff for animated faces and speech recognition, and it's going to be all web coded, and it'll come up in a web browser. I'll demo what I did yesterday, and then I will start doing some work on the next part of it. In this session, it'll be a live coding session. Me getting work done, that being my main thing that I'm doing on the stream, but happy to talk to people that pop in on chat. And yeah, so that's what I'm up to. Let's do a demo. Okay, so yesterday I did some stuff with communication between different components, and I don't know. I get bored explaining it sometimes. Anyways, I click these buttons and the mouth goes between different bisemes. And that isn't that big of a deal, but I did it with a pub sub pattern. So the idea is that there can be different messages that are sent from a variety of different places, and they can be received in a variety of different places, and neither the senders or the receivers have to know about each other. The senders post on a given topic, and the receivers subscribe on a given topic, and whenever a sender publishes, then all the receivers that have subscribed to that topic will get the message. So that's pub sub basically. And it was important to me to use that because I'm going to have different kinds of code that handle different parts of face animation. There'll be like one component that's for the mouth, another one for an eye, or two for two eyes, and perhaps other components as well, the overall background of the face. And I just want all of those components to be somewhat isolated, so they only need to receive messages that they care about and then render accordingly. And yesterday I made it so that these messages for different bisemes that are used for lip animation can be received by the mouth component. Mouth component will update what it shows as a result of receiving those messages. Today I want to work on a rendering hierarchy. So right now I've just got one component, the mouth component. But what I would like to have is like a head component or a face component that has nested inside of it everything that will render on top of it. If you ever played with a toy called Mr. Potato Head, let me see if I can just show it real quick. Mr. Potato, yeah. I don't know if this is still a popular toy. Some part of me hopes it still is. But the idea with Mr. Potato Head is you would just take this plastic base. It starts without any eyes, nose, mustache, or anything on it. It's just kind of like an empty potato. It's got little pegs in it, and you plop in the eyes or the ears that you want, and you can kind of create different sorts of faces and stuff. So my components in this rendering hierarchy are meant to be like that. Eventually I want to get to a point where there's an authoring environment for a user. They can make their own animated face by starting with a base face or a head, and just put the eyes they want on it, put the nose they want on it, and so on. So to support that, I need to create a rendering hierarchy. If you've used a game engine like Unity, for example, there's a rendering hierarchy built into it. They have this idea of transforms. A transform will have coordinates of one game object. That's the Unity nomenclature. I'll continue calling it a component because I've been saying component. It'll have one coordinates of a game object relative to its parent. So if we say the head is at say it's at the coordinates 5, 2, and the mouth is offset a little bit inside of the head. Maybe it's at 1, 1 relative to the top left corner of the base of the head. Then I can move the head, and then the final position of the mouth component inside of the head will be offset too. That's what the hierarchy gets you. Or if you think of like skeleton systems, anything where you have relative coordinates of children relative to their parents, that's basically the thing I want to put together today. And it should not take me long to get like a basic thing up and going. I'll just probably slow down around some of the design aspects of it, trying to think out like how to do it in a way I like. So that's what I'm going to work on today for a few hours at least, maybe 3. And if you want to come along for the ride, very cool. If you want to ask questions, great. But mainly, I'm here to work. Okay, let's get to it. Web face. Okay, I'm going to go to my Scratch so I can start thinking about a little bit design. All right, what are the requirements of this? A little pocket design. Rendering a topmost. Okay, let's see. Rendering a component will automatically render its children. And I'm not sure if I really want this to be a requirement. Maybe let's put a question mark there, because I might instead want to have like a rendering utility function that is aware of all the relationships between the components and renders accordingly. And that would be different than having a method, like a render method, where you call that render method and it automatically renders everything underneath. Let me see if I can write this requirement in a less prescriptive way, and that will give me freedom to use more than one solution or consider more than one solution. Okay. Parent-child relationships of components allow, let's see, inform order of rendering, e.g. parent first rendering order. Okay. Let's see. Repositioning a parent causes children to be rendered in alignment with the parents' repositioning. Take that out. I don't need that. Anything else I need from this? Will later support data-driven specification of component positioning. Let's just say layout, because maybe there's X, Y, maybe there's width and height transforms or rotation transforms. Okay. So I don't need this initially. I just don't want to paint myself into a corner where it's hard to add it later. So I think that's the basics of it. I'm just wondering if there's anything else. There might be some more requirements I think of as I write out some solutions. All right, so number one, the first solution I can think of. Let's see. Add to iRenderable component interface what do I need here? Maybe just X and Y. Get X, get Y. Maybe that's it. What? No, you also need get children. Okay. This X and Y will be an offset. Parent as well, get parent. So these would be properties. Read-only properties, I think. So it also feels like I would need to have like a mix-in or something. Because the implementation for these is going to be the same across every component. Well, I think get and set on these. Get set children, get set parent. So if I get the children, that's going to be an array. Of these renderables. So could directly modify that array. Or you could just say you could replace the whole array. So get is not you could, okay, if you use set to just replace the whole array, you can just get to get the array and then update the array individually, or items of it individually. Get set parent. Okay. So that's not too bad. Let's see. So none of these properties, these getters or setters, will in themselves cause anything to happen. There won't be any code to them besides getting and setting. That's what I like to use properties for, or like that convention that I know that if I set a value on a property, that's not really doing anything beyond setting the value of that property. Whereas if that weren't true, then I would probably use a method like add child, for example, to add a new child, and then maybe there's some side effect of adding a child. Okay, so let's see. Then, since this is a design where the component doesn't have any real functionality for rendering, it just exposes some data here in the properties, then I need a separate, we'll call it render util. Render util. Will there be any state to this rendering? I kind of like the idea of beginning with no state and waiting until we get to a place where I need to make like render engine or something to include state with rendering. But to begin with, I don't think I need any state. So let's call this render components. And then it'll take a canvas context. It'll take, let's see, it'll take let's just say component, and it'll take X and Y. So then I could take any renderable component, and I could say we're going to render it and all its children. Okay. Now I can also do render component context component XY to just render one, and that will probably get called inside of this one. Let's give us a more distinguishing method name though. Render component and children. There. That's pretty good. Like, I don't even know if I need like any alternative solutions, but I always like to just try to think of a different way to do it for just a little bit. To get an idea of like maybe if there's a better way. Okay, so I'll just put out some loose ideas. Okay, let's see. Create renderable component class that has, what's everything that so it's not renderable components, it's iCanvas renderable. Okay, so it's got this onRender method. Think about the naming on these a little bit too. This is going very object oriented. So OO style. So I was thinking about that. The only thing that might be the only thing that would be distinct to each type of component is the render function itself. It kind of feels like it'll go that way. So if that's the case, then what does that look like? Let's call this class renderable We'll say, I don't know, get offset x, blah, 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 etc. Okay. Then I could have one function that's just empty and needs to be overridden. And that will be on render. This isn't bad, actually, now that I think about it. Because then we would have a render object, or a render method, I mean, and it's going to call on render. Okay, and this is the mix-in part, or like this function would intentionally be overwritten by something that instances it. So you say on render component specific rendering. Instantiator sets on render to its own function. Okay. Then probably I want a factory, so we'll call it, say, class, or even just a module. Call it renderable factory. I gotta settle on my naming convention too. With this canvas renderable component, I just gotta settle on what these things are called. Renderable is a horrible word, but just for the moment, so I don't get pulled away too far from my design, let's so we say like export function create mouth. Okay, and then what this is going to do is it's going to instance a new component. And I can make the constructor set this on render thing too. Yeah, I think this number 2 one's going to be better than the number 1. Okay, what do I want to call these things? Okay, so then the constructor I don't need this. I have iRender callback. And then the constructor will set on render. So it'd be like this on render equals on render. I'm not writing syntactically correct because this is just design. Okay. And then down here, it's going to be like this on render. Okay, so that's going to settle that. Then here, I would just be passing in render mouth. Say on render mouth. And we do a bunch of imports at the top of this file from different modules that are just responsible for that rendering function. So this I'm starting to like. I'm liking it better than my number 1 solution. Because the difference is if I have like an interface here with all these things, then I'm still going to have like a lot of boilerplate with each of my classes. to do the hookup between the expected methods here, the getters and setters, and the variables in the object. And that's an opportunity for me to make mistakes, or for me to do things one way and then I change it and I forget that I have to go back and update all my previously written code to follow a change to an interface or something. So if I do it this way with a single class for all my renderables, then the only unique code I have to write for each renderable is going to be the onRender function. And that's pretty good. And I may add like an onInit or other things, but not too many things beyond just the rendering function. So I don't think that's bad. Now, let me just settle on once and for all what I'm going to call these things. Names. Okay, just start brainstorming. Renderable component. Canvas renderable. I hate the word renderable. Let's get away from that. Components is overloaded too because there's React components inside of this project. So it's kind of irritating to be using the same word for two things. Let's see, you could still from Unity and call them game objects. What else? What else is a good name for them? They're just like a rectangular area of the screen that gets rendered. And it's like a separation of concerns. I don't want to tie it to faces, even though right now that's the only scope that is going to use it. So if I was just going to tie it to faces, I might call it like feature or something like that. But there might be in the future, like I might throw a background palm tree behind the face or something, and I want it to sway in the wind, or some birds that flap around the scene or something like that. So I won't couple it to faces. Just something short. Draw space? That sounds terrible. What else? What should I call this thing? I just hate being saddled with a bad name I don't like. And then you start making all these changes in all these files, and you realize you hate that name so bad, but it gets so hard to get free of that bad name. I don't know. Plugins. That implies more functionality. Render target. It's not the worst one on the list. I don't know. I think I'm going to stick with component, but I just don't want the word renderable. So how about, what about canvas component? Because they're all going to render against a canvas. And then if I'm talking about React, I can just say React component, canvas component. I think that's the one I want. So it'll be canvas component, canvas component factory. Right, and then this will be canvas component. Right, so that'll be the basis of it. Okay, so then let's take this design. Number one, I decide that's not what I want. start a new directory for Canvas component stuff. Canvas component. Okay. And just down like that. Okay. So what do I want in there? I want my Canvas component. Okay, and I want my Canvas component factory. So this one will just be exported functions. So I have a different naming convention for that. It does weird me out a little bit to be using a factory pattern. I really don't like factories that much. It's just that JavaScript's functionality around classes and inheritance isn't that great. They kind of frown on inheritance in the design of it. So there isn't like built-in stuff that works that great in an encapsulated encapsulated way. So the factory is going to add that encapsulation to do some inheritance. Okay, so let's take this, put it inside of here, and then this is just a big mess. Okay. In fact, let's just do comments and then okay, then we'll have offset x, number, offset y, number, children. And this will be component, bam, bam. Okay, and parent. Constructor. Render. Okay. Then I want context, canvas, context. I think that one. I think that's it. Yeah. Okay. I don't think I need this frame count thing, so let's just take that. Okay, everything it needs is x and y number. Okay, and those will be absolute. Okay, so then if I do that, then I can do, okay, on render, and we want callback. Okay. And then this guy is also iRender callback. Okay. No. Okay, so that sets that up. Then I always forget the syntax for properties. TS property get. You know, if I was deep in the Stack Overflow game, if I really cared about getting points, the way to do it is you wait for like a new technology and you be one of the early adopters, and like you could self-answer questions that were very fundamental, but you basically get in on the ground floor and answer a question that a lot of people are going to ask. When did this person ask this? Let's see. When did TypeScript come out? Let's see. 2012. So I'm going to guess that this person asked this no later than 2015. I'll say 2014. Or this person answered this. Ooh, even earlier, 2012. So they got in like way at the very beginning. It was released in 2012. So it proves my point, actually. That's how you get an answer with 1,400 upvotes. If you care about that. I don't. I don't. Let's see. So this is going to be tool. Offset X. Number. Turn this. Offset X. Okay. What is your complaint? Oh, it's duplicate. Yeah, that makes sense. So for that, we just go bam, 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 bam. Yeah, I can keep on going with this convention. Okay. What are you complaining about? Oh, thank you. That was a good complaint. That was a very good complaint. That was an excellent linting job there. Thank you. Okay. So I thought for a brief moment about just letting these public members be the property getters and setters directly without creating these functions, but I can almost guarantee that at some point I'll need something like a dirty flag in here or some kind of marker. Let's see. I think I can do this. Yeah. Okay. So if I say render, now I have all the information I need to write this function. What's this? Render with children. See, maybe here I don't need the X and Y. Maybe here, let me think about this. Okay, I want this function to take absolute X and Y. But I already have offsets here. Let me think about this. Let me think about this. I like the idea of these top level methods not taking X and Y because I've got these offsets here, and I can have the calling code just modify the offsets to change the position. So if I use that, then I can just get rid of these two. But it does mean that I need to get the absolute position by going up the nodes to the root. So I think that's fine. I'm just going to add a utility module, but I think I'll just, for now, I'll just write a little function, and if it moves later, that's cool. So we'll say I do know I'm going to need to frequently use a coordinates type. So let's create some coordinates. You know what? It's going to be so annoying referencing it like this all the time. Do I really want it to be like a full type? What if I just return an array every once in a while? What if I just do that? I think that's fine. So, okay. Function get, let's see, find component absolute xy. Find absolute chords. Okay, and then we can do component, canvas component, and we can return just an array of numbers. Okay. And then we say let component, okay, let x equal 0. Y equals 0. Let seek component, canvas component, or null equal the starting component. And we say while seek component is not null, add the offsets. Seek component getter y plus equals seek component. Typo above. Okay, and seek component will be set to its parent. Okay, and we just return xy like that. See, I like this convention already. It's going to save me a lot of time, I think. Just return the coordinates and an array. I don't have to have a special type here. I don't have to, every time I have that value assigned to a variable, reference the .x or the .y in it. On the bad side of it, here and there might be some code that is a little bit harder to understand if I don't take some pains. Okay. So we say find absolute chords. Then down here we go const x, y equals find absolute chords this. Okay. On render x, y. Cool. That should do it. Okay. So for this one we say render ourselves first. oh, it's going to need like a recursive function. So get rid of the x and y again. I'm getting a little joy out of this too, because like when I was using Unity, I had to spend a fair amount of time to understand like all the game object transforms type stuff, and it's actually much less work to just kind of write your own just for what you need than it is to understand what's in Unity. And then there's always little weird bugs and stuff that come up that are hard to figure out because it's a black box of code you don't control. So this is really nice in some ways. It's coming together fast. And it's just not that complicated of a problem, even though it's sort of foundational to something like Unity. It's just not that big of a deal to write it. Okay, render with children. I need to write just a function that can be called recursively. So I'm going to say render with children, and I want to pass to it. Let's do render component with children, since I have it outside the scope of the class now. So we'll have context. What else is there? The component itself. And then X and Y, because what I want to do is pass in the absolute chords from each level. Okay. So for this, what do? We call so I don't want this absolute chords thing to be called in my recursive function. So I'm going to make one more public function, render at don't need this line here, but we just do this. Okay. Render component with children at. I'll just continue using this convention. Okay, so inside of here, I want to render the current component. Okay, so we say let me get this right. Component render at XY. Okay, and this is also going to need the context. Okay, cool. That does that. Then for the children. So we'll take the offsets of each child and you add them to the XY passed in. Okay, so I'm going to say render component with children at, and this is going to be context again. It's going to be the child. It's going to be X plus child offset X. and y plus child offset y. There we go. That seems correct to me. A little stylistic fiddling here. Okay. So then come back up to here. And I do need to get the top level XY for this, the absolute chords of this. And then after that, I just call that recursive function. And I'm going to pass the context, I'm going to pass the component, I'm going to pass the XY. Okay. So far, so great. I could write unit testing code around this, but it would be heavily contrived. It's one of those high effort, low value sets of unit tests that I'd like to avoid. It doesn't test the contract if I add in all sorts of callbacks and stuff to figure out the logic. Yeah, I'm going to skip unit testing this one. Because all I can really test is implementation details rather than the contract. Yeah, for now I'll skip it. I may write something later, but I think I probably won't. Okay. So, mouth. Ah! Yeah, stupid porn spam. At some point, all the porn hustlers in the world started texting me about different women in my neighborhood that want to meet up. Okay, so I have this working code here that was written in a different paradigm. There is this loading part of it. Wondering how that's going to fit into what I'm trying to do. Because I need these bitmap images to render. I think I might need a few more lifecycle events in my component. But it's not too big a deal. I think it's okay, let me think about this a little bit. Pocket design time. Requirements. This is for initialization. Component. Can perform actions such as loading bitmaps, generating convenience values in an init callback. Or let's see, on init. Readiness state is tracked, is updated asynchronously. Component gracefully skips rendering if not ready. Okay. Let's see. Different kinds of data can be passed to initialization. Okay. Okay. Yeah, this is not too bad. Okay, so my number one solution. Let's see. Constructor onload. Load callback. Okay. Load callback. Returns a promise. That resolves once completed. This is easy enough that I'm just going to go for it. I'm not going to explore the solution space. This seems very straightforward. Okay, canvas component. Let's go back up here. Say so what goes into here? Let's say init data, any. So that'll be defined by the specific component. So I leave it as an any. And it's going to return a promise to avoid. Does it matter if I do async? Oh, that works. Cool. Good. Do I need to specify async? I don't really. Like, I'm adding more restrictions to how you can implement the callback if I say async. If I left async off, the implementer could write it as an async function or not. But you know what? I'm going to leave it on because I don't see any value to implementing it without async. Okay, so I load callback. Okay, and then we go. Let's do it in the order that they would occur. So on load, I load. That. Okay. So now I'm thinking, do I want to have this stuff do I want to have an explicit load, or do I want the constructor to just start it loading? I think I want an explicit call to a load method. Because maybe there's some useful things you can do before it's all loaded. the other hand, I can't think of any use cases where that is helpful. And it is a little bit simpler to just have it start loading after the constructor starts. But okay, here's the use case. You don't want to try rendering until you know everything is loaded. If that's true, then you want some kind of promise from to go back to the caller, and a constructor won't be able to give you that promise back because it can't have a return type. So therefore, the load method is a better choice. So we'll do load. I also think there's probably going to be a reason to have an unload. I'm not going to write it now because it's not going to be immediately needed, but the symmetry of a load and an unload is good. Okay, so let's see. Async load promise. Okay, so we'll do pretty simple. Just return this unload. Okay, but the other thing we need is the init data. And I think let's await the onload. What's your complaint? Maybe the async is getting in the way. Yeah, it is. Okay. Okay, cool. That's fine. So await this onload, and we want a is loaded boolean. Okay, and that means that we get down to these guys. I can say if we're not loaded, just return. Okay, if we're not loaded, just return. And then here, I'll go ahead and do a get on the is loaded. Get is loaded. Boolean. Return this is loaded. Okay. So if I do that, I can do the render of the children, and I can check here if component is loaded. Component render at blah, 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 blah. Okay. So what this will do is say in the hierarchy of components that are going to get rendered, some are loaded and some aren't. All the ones that are loaded, it's going to render them. All the ones that are not will not be rendered. Will not be rendered if they're not loaded. So that should be a graceful way to handle things that are in unpredictable states. Okay. Then I need a load with children. Oh, that gets tricky because of the initialization data. Because it would be pretty easy to write a recursive loader like but I wouldn't have any initialization data to pass to all the children. So the caller, I think the caller needs to explicitly call load on each component. There's no recursive way to just boom, get them all to load. I mean, I could do tricky stuff where there's recursive initialization data, but that just seems brittle. It seems quite prone to failure. I'd rather the caller just say, here's the mouth component, load that with mouth initialization data. Here's the left eye, load that with the initialization data for the left eye. Because then they'll be able to clearly see what they're passing initialization data to. So I don't think there's a... Yeah, I don't think there is a good way to start the loading of all the children right away. But what I could do is figure a way to take the top level, component into a weight. So let's see, what if it could be async wait for load. I don't want to have polling. So since I don't want polling, this would be wait for load, and then there's going to be, since I don't want polling, I'd have to hold on to the promise in each one. I am going to have to write unit tests for this, I can see that now. Load with children. Okay, do a promise for that. So if I just store the promise, yeah, I think I'm pretty good. Because then all I have to do is return the promise from this, and like recursively, I can just collect all the promises returned from the children and just wait on all of them, and that will also recursively underneath the hood wait for any children of theirs. Purpose Drifter. Dude, it has been a while. I'm pretty good. How you doing up in I know it's Canada, but I think it's like Ontario, I want to say. My memory might be way off on that. Not Victoria. There's another Canadian from Victoria that I would talk to. I seem to remember it was in that eastern side of Canada. sure if you might have popped off for a bit there. Oh, there you go. Cool. Oh, my memory's not that bad. All right, so you got a new project, or are you talking about my new project? Or? Yeah, well, like what stuff you working on these days? Yeah. So, I released the game, and I'm not bitter or anything, but the amount of attention I got out was so small that it made me think I could plug away on the same effort and release some sequels and everything, but it feels like I'm on the wrong path. That was my appraisal after letting some months go by. Keep in mind, I put a large amount of work into marketing too, so it wasn't like I didn't try to get it out there. Just a lot of games being released. So I said, let's do something different. Let's get away from like Unity and the game engines. And I don't like Steam. I don't like all the hoops I have to jump through to do that. I don't like how my code rots inside of game engines. So I just said, I want to do web-based. Web-based because people can just hop in and try out everything I've put together. And web-based because the code will it won't rot quite as fast, and it won't be a black box. There won't be like an engine code I have to fuck around with that is unknown to me. So I am doing some stuff with speech recognition and facial animation and storytelling. And it should just be something that if someone wants to check it out, they just go to a web page and it'll be like they're talking to a cartoon character on the screen, and maybe that's stream friendly, and I can get YouTube videos and stuff of people playing it and talking to my characters and things like that. So yeah, and web is kind of my briar patch too. Like I've done like a lot of web coding in the past. But yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, I get in my mode. You know me. I'm curious. So if you're working on anything cool yourself, and don't feel bad if you aren't. Like if life is like really busy and not letting you get to it, it's not me to pour salt on that wound. Let's see. Want private load promise. Or no. Oh, I suppose if I just have this load promise, I don't need the is loaded. I can just remove that. So then we'll say this load promise equals this unload, and we'll just return load promise. Bam, like that. Okay, and this guy will just yank out. RFID coding on Raspberry Pi to a billing system for Hydrovac system. Paperwork around compliance, very boring. 100+ hour work weeks. Hope you're making bank with that. Hope you're hourly, not salaried with that. Yeah. No, it's good to see you drop by, man. Hold on, I gotta go check real quick. What is a hydrovac? So, what is a hydrovac? So hydraulics. Hydrovac excavation. What is hydrovac? Hydrovac trucks. Okay, hydrovac trucks. Well, first I'll look at the pretty pictures. That's a beautiful truck. You know, when I was like a younger person and I would see like a big old truck someplace, like to me it was looked kind of junky and dirty and not very cool. And now I look at like a tractor or something like this and I go, wow, that looks like a cool piece of machinery. Okay, what do they do? Provide safe, efficient excavation. Like this is like looks like Star Wars tech or something, you know? Yeah, this looks like if somebody was trying to make like a near future science fiction-y looking type of a truck, like they'd come up with this design. It looks fucking cool. And I don't think I've seen many of these on the road or any place. Yeah. Yeah. I'm guessing like maybe somewhere like $100,000 or something like that. Like they seem like they'd be very expensive too. I don't know anything about them though. So, but I for my day job I work like in a industry that digital agriculture, right? And you know what farmers get gleeful about, like friggin' gleeful, is their tractors and their combines and shit. Okay. So they're used to excavate, to maybe clean up spills or vacuum up large amounts of stuff. Non-destructive excavation, frozen ground excavation. They suck up dirt. All right, that's pretty cool. I I doubt your job is that boring. All right, let me get back to this guy over here. I can believe it. I can believe it. So if I say wait for load, is that the way to do it? I think for this guy, I just return the promise. Oh, but it's got to be... Is there any value to doing this one? I don't think there is. Okay, and this one, though, there might be. So we'd say... Yeah, I don't know. Do you do like TypeScript, JavaScript stuff, or is that kind of outside your wheelhouse? Anyways, I won't keep chatting. I just kind of that'll be my last question for a bit. I'll leave you in a little bit of peace. Okay, so wait for the children. Don't leave the children behind. So I want to collect the promises of all the children. For that, we say const child promises equals let's say all the promises. Promises equals children map child and child wait for load with children. Okay, so that will get that. Then I want to push. Fair enough. Yeah. I'm not really either, but I just love that you get a little container that's portable, that has like all this function. It's like having a little operating system on everybody's computer that works about the same way. That web browser environment. So that's the part that appeals to me about it. Other than that, yeah, I don't think JavaScript or even TypeScript is that great, really. Okay. But yeah, I might get into WebAssembly later. And then I could have the best of both worlds. I could do C# and run that in the browser. Okay, promises push this load promise. So if I push that, then I can return promise all promise void bam promises. That I got greedy there. Let's see. Yeah, well, that should work. Promise void then this should be promises. What's the issue? Is it like... You know what? I don't think this is worth implementing now. Because I can have the caller just manage the waiting for load stuff. I don't need this kind of weird recursive thing. Okay, but isLoaded needs to check the load promise. And we have to see if it's resolved or not. Okay, so the first way I had it is the way that I should do it. Okay, this, let's see, private isLoaded boolean. Okay, this isLoaded equals false. Let me say load. Okay. Turn new promise resolve. And we say that if new promise resolve reject. Okay, so this will get called. Or we say this load promise, then that should do it. Okay. Down here is loaded. We just say this is loaded. Okay, that should do it. Okay. So what is this Canvas component factory going to look like? Add file. Okay, that's another thing. Load needs to return an opaque object of unknown type that will contain rendering state. So that means what I've been saying, that my promise resolves to a void, it should actually resolve to an any. Okay. So that's true. Then I also want to, okay, I don't need to return that rendering state though. I can track it inside of here. But I do need to store component state. Promises are not easy to grok. So I found them harder to deal with than just normal multi-threaded and concurrent programming. Or at least concurrent programming, you have to do a lot of things with thread synchronization to make sure you don't shoot yourself in the foot, but at least just understanding how it works, much simpler. Still, I'm being a little bit apples and oranges because it's concurrent programming, not the same thing as asynchronous state management. But JavaScript began with callbacks, and then everyone complained about callbacks, and then promises was better than callbacks because callbacks would just be these long chains of callbacks. You'd have to create these kind of confusing syntax of code with all these callbacks. And promises was a little bit better because you could have the syntax chaining them together in ways that were easier to understand when you read through the code, but still kind of a pain in the ass. Then there's these asynchronous functions, which is the next thing on top of that, and those start to look simple. But like, you can't get too far in JavaScript without mastering promises. Yeah, it's the chaining stuff which is tricky to manage, almost whatever syntactical convention you have, but it got better with promises, and then with these asynchronous functions which kind of simulate like a multi-threaded style of programming, then it got easier still. But since all the asynchronous functions are built on top of promises, it's like you just can't get around understanding the promises. Let's see. Oh. And when this comes back, we say this component state gets set to component state. Did I not just put this here? What is your complaint? Oh, semicolon. No? Okay, what's this? Oh, I didn't do this. Bam. Okay. So what do I do with the component state? I have to pass it. Yeah, so I don't like factories either. In fact, what I might do is move. I might get rid of the factory, because then I have like a centralized place I have to keep adding stuff to, and just create like a instantiation function inside of each module. It's kind of a kludge, because inheritance in JavaScript doesn't work in nice ways. So I was tempted to use a factory because inheritance has to be kind of manipulated in JavaScript, and I thought maybe I'll encapsulate that inside of a factory, but yeah, I don't think I need the friggin' factory, to be honest. Okay. If the component state's there, then I have to pass component state to the rendering function. So for that, let's do component state any. Okay. And then let's go. Every place I'm rendering, what am I doing? Okay. So let's say this component state. This component state, bam, like that. Okay. Then up here, what am I doing for rendering? Render at, okay. So that will use the component state of the component. Cool. Load. Yeah, it seemed to tie heavily into the async coding. .NET and Java launched a lot of it. Yeah, that's where I picked it up, was Java. Trying to revitalize object-oriented programming, modernizing the project model pretty much stopped when Atomics came out. That helped solve a lot of lock issues and things with modern processors and old languages. Yeah, I think my factory there, honestly, not that I'm like kind of like knee-jerk responding to what you said, but I think my factory there wasn't needed, so I was kind of glad to just get rid of it just now. There's a lot of patterns in Java that maybe I didn't get into them deep enough, but I did not understand why people did them. I did not understand them. They seemed overly complex for what people were trying to do. But it might have been more of a, if we've got 50 programmers all running around the same code base, and we got to understand what everybody's doing, let's stick to the patterns. Even if they're kind of stupid, let's just stick to the patterns. Then we know what we're all doing. If we're doing a military march, we're going to go left, 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 right, left. We're not going to start with right, 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 left, right. You know, that kind of stupidity, which is a functional stupidity at times. lot of new code I wrote. And it seems like I might want to unit test it. Yeah, I think I kind of missed like the last decade of developments in both Java and C++. But like in the 2010s, I wrote a lot of Java code. In the 2000s, I wrote a lot of C++ code. The thing that's making me a little bit excited, a thing that's making me a little bit excited about web is WebAssembly, where we could just kind of abandon JavaScript and just write in a language of choice and still have access to all the document object model stuff. There's some really cool examples of this now. So if I go to, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Okay. I go to a Bosk demo. Okay, so this is a browser-based demo for speech recognition. It's based on WebAssembly compiled C# code from a different project that runs inside of a browser. And it's excellent offline speech recognition. No server round trips. It's got a great vocabulary. It's got language models for all these different languages. And it's all implemented in C#. It's just compiled to WebAssembly. Works great. Okay. All right. So let's do some tests. First off, do I feel confident that I could, a little bit later, move this code over? So this load Visemes bitmaps, that could all go in that onload method. Really? WebAssembly lets you... WebAssembly lets you go down to the hardware level? I don't know that much about it, to be honest. That's terrible. Wow. Okay, I gotta look more into that. I was hoping WebAssembly might be part of a solution for avoiding supply chain attacks too, and because you would have a way to see like exactly what calls are being made to network and file systems without the language obscuring it. But if they're going to have instructions that let you hook into hardware, that's like so permissive. Wow. I had no idea. I need to look deeper into it. Yeah, I'm irritated that we haven't done more. I say we, the collective we, the community at large of people involved in technology. I'm irritated we haven't done more to sandbox web apps from supply chain attacks. Like even if you just took just pure JavaScript, if you create a new React web app using the little utility that Meta provides everyone, Create React app. It starts you off before you even write any of your own code with the boilerplate with an import of, it's like 1,500 packages. Most of them are transitive dependencies. And then like Meta doesn't have any control over all the transitive dependencies. There's a package manager that will flag some as having security vulnerabilities. But even then, like, the people managing it aren't really responsible for those, right? So for me, it's really stupid to have a social system arranged around warning people when things aren't secure, and then you respond to that and you patch up things, and you know maybe say certain packages are not going to come into your project, and get the word out that this is an insecure project and flag it and all that. It's a social system. It's not a technological system. It's just unconscionable, really, the way it's been set up. Just the idea that to write a modern web app, you need to import blindly the code from 1,000 other projects, and then respond to every little hiccup of malware or insecurity that those 1,000 other projects brings into your house. You know, that's just stupid. It's freaking stupid. Yeah, I've taken the practice of just writing most things myself, unless they're really something hard to write. And I keep finding that the things that other packages are offering are pretty easy to write myself. Like, I wrote like a basic pub sub class in like 3 hours, you know. It's like, okay, I'm done with that. I didn't have to import like the greatest pub sub package that does way more than I need and may bring in security vulnerabilities I have to respond to. It feels good. It feels good. It feels good. Yeah, if I went back to native coding, I don't even know if I would use a game engine. Even like Godot, I think I might just go straight handmade with hardware abstraction layers that are other people's code, you know. Just a very thin abstraction layer on the hardware and operating system. Yeah. 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 All right, let's get some tests written on this baby. Because I think this is going to move over pretty well, but I want to test out the code while it's still fresh in my mind. So let's see. 6 o'clock now. Oh, shit. It's time for me to order food with my wife. Man, time snuck by. Or, no, time passed by. And it snuck up on me. But I gotta take off here. I'll have to leave the rest of this for later. Cool talking to you, man. Thanks for stopping by. Nah, it's all right. I don't mean having a good conversation. Boom. But yeah, you too. Nice to see you again. I'll see your chats again, anyways. All right, take it easy. Stopping the stream. Stopping the stream. Stop.